1861 to 1865, a brutal four-year civil war, the bloodiest conflict in American history. It wasn't just a war, it was a struggle for slavery versus freedom. It was a conflict between North and South. It was a struggle for the liberation of a people. And at the center of this struggle was one man, Abraham Lincoln. Today, we will see how slavery, politics, war, and leadership combined to create a new America. The American South was dependent on slavery. Millions of African slaves were used to run vast cotton and tobacco plantations. On the other hand, the North was rapidly industrializing, where slavery had no place. These different economies and cultures divided America in two. While the Missouri Compromise of 1820 temporarily eased tensions, the problem did not go away. The Compromise of 1850 and the Kansas-Nebraska Act further divided the country. Bloody conflict broke out in Kansas, which is known in history as Bleeding Kansas. Then came the Dred Scott case of 1857, which declared that black people had no civil rights. This was like pouring oil on the fire. Abraham Lincoln was born into a poor family. He studied himself and became a lawyer. When he entered politics, he made it clear that slavery was wrong. Lincoln won the 1860 presidential election, but immediately after his victory, 7 southern states seceded from the Union and declared their own new state, the Confederate States of America.
Jefferson Davis became their president. Thus, the stage was set for war. April 12, 1861. Confederate soldiers opened fire on Fort Sumter, South Carolina. The Civil War began. The North had the population, industrial power, and railroads. The South had control of the land, experienced military leadership, and slave labor. The first major battle took place at Bull Run. The North lost there. Everyone understood this war would not end easily. The Battle of Antietam in 1860 to the bloodiest day in American history. About 23,000 people were killed or wounded. July 1863 Battle of Gettysburg. This 3-day battle broke the strength of the Confederacy. On the other hand, General Sherman and his troops burned the South. Sherman's march to the sea, villages, towns, farms were destroyed. Death, hunger, and despair were daily companions on the battlefield. Even black soldiers were added to the army. The 54th Massachusetts Regiment made history by their bravery. The slaves of the South worked day and night on the farms. There was no freedom, no rights, no respect. Their cries of suffering sparked a new movement in the North. On January 1, 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This declaration stated that all slaves in the Confederate States were now free. It gave new meaning to war. It was no longer just a political struggle, it became a struggle for human liberation. The world was also looking to America at that time. Britain and France did not support the Confederacy because they did not want to support slavery. Lincoln's leadership sustained this war. He did not break even in the face of immense pressure. In the Gettysburg Address of 1863, he said, "Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." This short speech redefined the spirit of America. He was not just a war president, he was the voice of humanity. April 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered his troops at Appomattox Courthouse. The 4-year war ended, but the end was bloody. About 600,000 people died. The North was victorious, but the South was reduced to rubble. Shortly after the war, Congress passed the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery forever. But Lincoln could not enjoy this victory for long. On April 14, 1865, he was shot and killed by an assassin while watching a play at Ford's Theater in Washington. The country cried because it had lost its greatest leader. Although the Civil War ended, racism, discrimination, and conflict did not end. However, it rebuilt America. It proves that freedom does not come for free. People gave blood and lives for humanity, for equality. The echoes of the Civil War can still be heard in American society and politics today. But Lincoln's dream still lives a country where all are equal. The Civil War was a terrible chapter, but it was the one that gave America a new birth.
It teaches no matter how strong injustice and slavery, the triumph of justice and freedom is inevitable. Leaders like Abraham Lincoln proved that one man's courage, vision, and faith can change an entire nation.